And welcome back, guys, to the King of Average podcast. This is one of your lovely hosts, Melik, and
Your boy BB.
yes, sir.
To
So,
answer your question, none of them were white.
all right, great. All right, so that really brings up such an important topic, and that's going to be what we're going to be talking about. Ironically enough, today is the Aryan race, and
I'm actually like connecting dots in my head.
you're like.
Word association.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so stuck on that game. But no, we're gonna be talking about perspective, and I guess my question to you right now is: whenever you think of the word perspective, word association, what comes to mind?
Aryan race.
So what actually comes to mind?
I love how you're starting every episode now with like this whole. You know, it's funny, they can't even hear it, but I love how you're starting every episode with like this whole thing about like when I say the word, what comes to your mind.
Yes,
I really like that. It's good. Great way to kind of like get the conversation going and get us warmed up. When I think perspective, I think of the word consideration, right? When I think perspective, I think the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Oh wow.
And that's all, folks.
Boom. No, but okay. So when you said that, it's almost like the perspective of like looking at a view at like an ocean, and that ocean is just mass.
So that's what you think when you think of perspective?
No, but like when you were explaining it, right? You like that automatically popped to my mind of you saying like you see everything, but you don't like fully know it. So it's like you see the beach, you see the sand, but then over that horizon, you don't know what's over there. So it's almost like cut off. So to kind of piggyback off that with perspective, like you got to explore.
What do you think when you think perspective? I love that visual.
Yeah,
that visual because that's an exactly perfect way to explain it.
Yeah.
You know, and a very similar one, just to steal your idea here, is kind of like, let's say for example back in Medellin, right? Medellin is so dope because it's like literally a city in a valley, right? And all day, all night, you have the beautiful view of the mountains that surround you, right? And so same thing, if your entire world is just within these mountains, the question is going to constantly come up to your head, right? Because you can know your world really well, what's behind the mountains. So what do you think when you hear the word perspective?
When I think of the word perspective, what comes to mind is a point of view, right? Almost to what you're talking about, but everyone has their own way of thinking about things, their own perspective of life, their own upbringing, and how they were brought up. So whenever I think of the word perspective, I'm thinking of the word point of view. Everyone has their way that they're, once again, man, everyone is brought up with their core beliefs. Everyone's brought up with the world that they live in. I was basically born in San Diego, but I was raised over here in Anaheim, Stanton area. So my perspective is this area. And I've been so fortunate enough throughout my life to do a lot of traveling. So now my perspective has brought it. That horizon, that picture just keeps on getting more and more clear. But the more clear it becomes, the more you start to realize that this picture is vast. This is a huge picture, man. And there are many other blurry parts of that picture that you still need to discover.
Yeah, I like how you brought in traveling immediately when it comes down to just like opening up your worldview, because there's this thing I always like to reference to, because it was a first-hand experience that I had. And it was basically the idea that when you're entrapped in your home, right, your place of comfort, when you're at home all day, or, you know, you don't travel often, you don't get out often. When you don't travel often, we don't get out often, you're kind of just trapped in your own home. What ends up happening is literally those four walls become your entire world view. They become everything you know, the only thing you see, right? And it's only the opportunities in life in which you're able to get out, explore a new place, travel somewhere, is when you realize that those four walls that make up your life isn't the entire world, and rather the world is much bigger than you think. So what ends up happening often is everything within those four walls that typically is going to stress you out, that typically is going to, be part of your day-to-day traumas, whatever the case is, you start to recognize how insignificant those are because of how vast the world really is.
I remember working for Enterprise, and before working for Enterprise, I used to work in basically like a cubicle, just making about 200 phone calls a day. And if you want to know what depression is, my word association with the word depression is a cubicle. That's exactly what it comes to mind, man. But I remember being stuck in that same thing, like that, basically being confined to those four walls around me. And I remember looking around or looking outside. I'm like, man, it's such a beautiful day. You see everyone going out and about, but I'm just over here stuck. So I was stuck in my own world, in that own cubicle. And why I ended up realizing is after I left, I was like, man, this is such a beautiful day. It's like 1 p.m. right now. I should be stuck in my cubicle, but because I quit, because I changed up my whole schedule, my whole life at that moment, there was more to the world than just that cubicle, than that one experience. And that was basically like a perception or like a mind shift to me. It's like, I can't do confined areas anymore. There's no freaking way I'm able to sit down for 8 to 10 hours of my life making phone calls and just doing absolutely that for the rest of my life without moving, driving around, talking to people, face to face, I should say. So I felt like that was an experience I'll never forget, and I'm happy I've gone through it, man.
No doubt. I so the reason why the first word that came out of my mouth when you asked me, what do I think of when I hear the word perspective, the first that came out of my mouth was, I don't even remember. Being considerate. That's what it was. I was like, condensation? What happened? Being considerate. And the reason why is because, the whole idea of you don't know until you go through something, right? You don't know what it's like until you go through it, But very often when people almost brag about their traumas and I'm being sarcastic because genuinely, I feel like your traumas and your insecurities are something you need to constantly work at and not something that justifies failures in life, right? You recognize it and you start working towards fixing it, or you at least work towards accepting it. Because the reality of the situation is anything that is hardwired in your brain could be and should be rewired to something better if it is negative. But nonetheless, back to what I was saying. People go through traumas. Everyone has their own troubles. Everyone has, experiences or another that they'll never forget in their life that literally has shaped the way they are, right? And I feel like what's really, really helped just me better interact with people is before I get triggered by something, I always ask myself the question, I wonder why they think that way. And the thing is, naturally, I think because I'm the youngest in my family, I feel like one of my natural strengths is my ability to observe, but also the ability to psychoanalyze. And you probably know this about me, I'll meet someone and 5 minutes later, I can legit just break down how they are as a person and what they probably went through and stuff like that. And for me, it's genuinely exciting, and it's not even a form of judgment or anything.
Yeah.
But this is how I'm hardwired. But this is how my brain works. You know what I mean? I look at someone like Malik, and I'll see the way he presents himself, the way he carries himself, the way he walks, the way he talks. And, I'll be able to break down in my mind just what the type of person he is and how he likes to carry himself and whatever. And so I'm just really good at psychoanalyzing. I just am. So whenever something does happen to me that someone does, and it bothers me, or it triggers me, or it just pisses me off in general, instead of having that natural reaction, I start asking myself a few questions, right? And among those questions is, why does this person act this way? What caused them to be this way? And then it automatically makes me remember my past and my traumas and things I went through. And I go, you know what? Maybe I don't understand their perspective. So it causes me to become more considerate of the situation and more considerate of the person, right? And obviously, you have to take people case by case. You have to take people for the individuals they are. Even though I was being sarcastic about this, the whole idea of traumas and insecurities and whatnot, the reality of the situation is some people, they can't handle, like, the truth. They can't handle the pressure of knowing what the reality is, right? So some people, you have to take it at levels. Some people you can have a conversation with. Some people you can tell them, hey, stick your chest up and man up. And then some people you have to recognize, hey, you know what? Maybe they've been through something. Let me not push that button. You got to really take it case by case. We are all individuals. Matic and I, you can come up and you can roast us. If we're doing something wrong, you can just absolutely slap it in our face.
Which camera should I look at?
Let's just address the people.
Please roast me. I need a reason to roast other people. Do you know how unfair it is for me to roast people in my mind, and I'm just laughing, and they're just looking at me and they smile and they wave back. I'm like, dude, if only you knew what I said about you right now, you would not be smiling. It's the freaking Tunisian in me. But yeah, guys, if you guys ever see BB and I out on the street, first, go screw yourself. And the second is, please roast us.
Roast us in the comments.
Dude.
All three of you.
We would, yeah. All one of you. But yeah, I'll definitely reply back.
But yeah, perspective for me really, really, it revolves around consideration. Because it simply is, I don't understand their perspective, right? And don't put yourself in a position where you're just like, oh, I need to understand. You don't need to do all of that. Walk a mile in my shoes. Dude, I don't care. That's your story.
You got to be okay with not understanding.
You have to be okay with not understanding, but then you also have to be okay with things not going your way. You know what I'm saying? If I can't really think of an example right now, but typically if you're triggered by something, maybe it's because something didn't go your way, or you didn't get the reaction you were looking for, or someone did not obey you when they asked you to do something, or BBs are always late. You know what I mean? Develop perspective and understand that you don't understand the other person's perspective.
See, I was supposed to be over here at the house at 8:15. This guy shows up at, what, 9:45?
Yeah. No. Pause. It was exactly 9:26 when I texted you, but you were praying.
9:26.
9:26.
9:26.
So yeah.
Well,
yeah, but see.
Now, if I understood,
no,
that
if you just took into consideration that, you know what, BB's got some stuff going on, he's got to handle a few things.
Like what?
It's none of your business. This is not how consideration works. You're supposed to just accept it.
I'm talking about perspective.
Just accept it.
But one thing that you brought up was very important. Is I absolutely hate the victim mentality personality. You know what I'm saying? Victim mentality personality. Whoa. But
bars.
Going on that is, and you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. Why is it always me? I failed because of this. I failed because of that. Or I failed because of that person, because of my dad, because of my mom, because of my cat that didn't meow at me in the morning.
Cats are very sassy though.
We try to find any reason to justify our failures. If we don't do any tasks, if we're late, if we're this, we're that, we're going to be like, yo, this is the reason why. Traffic. So it's hilarious to think about, but people will always say like, oh, it's my trauma and it's this. And many times when you hear them out and you start like having them break it down in your mind, you're like, bro, this could have been resolved a long time ago. There's no way. Like, I've gone through some trauma in my life. Every single human being has gone through a decent amount of heavy trauma in their life. But still, at the end of the day, some of them are winners, meaning that they're living a joyous life. They're living a life of purpose. And many other people are not. They're living in the past. They're living in all those situations, those circumstances. I mean, back when we were, 2014, right? Bibi and I had a major accident. Like, basically, I was coming home from work. We were both coming home from work in the same van. And I fell asleep behind the wheel. I would have never thought in my whole life that I would have ever fall asleep, driving.
I was already knocked out.
Yes, without his seatbelt on as well. So it's like, I mean, that's an important detail though, right? Because I fell asleep and I literally wake up to the jaws of life, clawing out the door and, oh, he's alive. The firemen are shouting. And then I remember getting to the hospital. I'm like, look at your brother, bro. I'm like, dude, where the heck is BB? Where the heck is BB? Because I'm like, what the hell is going on? But the reason why I bring up the story is because we've gone through such a traumatic experience in our life. We could have both used it to be like, yo, I don't ever want to drive again in my life. Or, yo, I don't ever want to do, I can never succeed, or I'll never, because of this one major situation that happened. But no, we didn't let that stop us. And that's just only one trauma that we had in our life that did not hold us back. I'm sorry. So like when people come up to me and they're talking about it, I actually want to know why they feel the way they still feel. It's been 10 years. It's been 5 years. Why do you still let that hold you back? It's a negative experience. I get it. It made you feel a horrible type of way. I get it. But you gotta live life and continue on. I feel like those people that don't know how to handle it have not actually stood by themselves and just faced that trauma face to face. They just battled it out in their mind until they finally got to some sort of resolution. Because it's all goes back to this. It's all about perspective, guys. It sounds cliche as heck, but when at the end of the day, when life isn't going your way, you have to make sure that you get to be appreciative. Look around, start pointing out some positives. It's a day. It's a beautiful day. I'm walking. I'm this. I'm that. It brings me to an amazing story. Last Thursday, I was at the farmer's market. And I personally love tattoos. I've always actually liked tattoos. And I saw one of my customers, and it was like a middle-aged woman. And she had a couple symbols on her arm. So I remember going up to her, I'm like, hey, like, what do those symbols mean? She was like, oh, these squares and they're different colors. That's my son. That's my daughter. That's this, that's that. And then there's like stars around the boxes. She's like, those are my grandchildren. I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, that's actually super symbolic. And then here's where it gets good. There's a line, 2 words that says, get to. I'm like, what does that mean? Get to. She's like, that's what my husband always says. At least I get to wake up. I get to go to the farmer's market. I get to live a life. I get to live in California. I get to. So that is an important like perspective of life that, hey, look, when ish is not going your way, which it's not for the most part of a person's life, at least you shift your mindset to, hey, look, here's the positives. At least I get to wake up in the morning. At least I get to see my friend. At least I get to. So that way, like, the whole thing around it was, was just
Gratitude.
gratitude, man. Gratitude, because we all know how dark times could get, man. And just having that perspective of just, hey, look, I'm able to do this, I'm able to do that. It could have been worse, even though you're able to shift your mood a little bit to then continue on with your life. So I felt like the whole get to analogy was just so important in my life. And that happened last week. It was just, she was smiling, like she was so happy that I brought it up. And I was smiling back, because after that, I was just like, man, what a great perspective shift. So that's why, like, when you were like, oh, what should we talk about? I'm like, we have to talk about perspective, because that was such a fresh experience that happened to me.
I like that. I like that. We're definitely going to have an entire episode on gratitude.
Yeah.
No, I even though as much as I want to expand on that point, we're going to do an entire episode on gratitude as well, because that was one of the topics that actually I wanted to write out and bring up. But there was a couple points I wanted to mention with what you were saying. The first point, get out of the way quick.
I guess that was, I could have hold it over this. That was good. Whatever the heck that was. Just say it.
The first. I'm good. I promise. Promise. What's so funny?
At least you get to say it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Get to your point.
You know what's funny is, you know how some people have, like, they put, like, writings, they'll, like, either have, like, you know, motivate, live, laugh, love, like, motivational posters, like, in their room or wherever.
Dwight, you ignorant slut.
Do who?
Dwight.
Oh, okay.
From The Office.
Oh, why'd you call him Dwight?
Dwight.
Yeah, Dwight.
Yeah.
Not Dwight.
You serious?
You're the one who said it that way.
Arrow, you're the one that says.
So I like get to. I'm gonna add get to as, like, you know, I don't have any posters, but I'm if I'm ever gonna start doing those posters, get to is definitely gonna be one of them, because that's dope. I really like that.
Profound.
When you were talking about our car accident, and you were talking about how, you know, you can go through a traumatic experience. You can go through a traumatic experience, but you really have to learn how to, in a sense, get over it. Figure out how to. I'm not talking today. It's not happening, dude. Word association. You have to learn how to grow from your experiences, right? Make the most of it in a way to where, and it definitely involves, you know, being grateful. It definitely involves like being grateful that we survived, right? But you have to really just, you know, shift your perspective. You have to shift everything in order that you can genuinely just become a better person. Even though that happened, it happened for a reason. You accept it for what it is. But after that accident, I think the weeks following, I don't know how long, but easily like 10 weeks following that accident was probably like one of the most degenerate stages of my life. And the reason why is because I used that incident as an excuse.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't even like I used that as an excuse, as in like, oh, the world hates me and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't even like that. But it was just like, you know, you get out the hospital after 4 days and it's like insane migraines. You're not going back to school. You can't even get out of bed. Literally bedridden for like the next 2 weeks after that, right?
Yeah.
And it was very difficult for me to pray, to get up and pray, because, bro, the migraines were so bad. Like, you're gonna find this funny because I'm colorblind, but the migraines were so bad. My entire vision had like a tint of orange. Maybe it wasn't even orange. I got you. So my entire vision had like a tint of orange because the migraines were so bad, you know? And I became addicted to painkillers. No, actually it wasn't that bad. I didn't do all that.
Really?
I had one prescription of Norcos and they didn't do anything to me except take the migraine away which was amazing. That's all I could ask for.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. And I literally would take it. These migraines were insane. They were insane migraines. I would take this pill and then it would just immediately, and I was like, sick, I like it, you know? But it never gave me like a woozy feeling. But anyways, so like I didn't pray in the following weeks. And then yeah, from there, it just became one thing after another of bad habits that I started tackling on that I wasn't pleased with. But eventually, a short while later, I had to go through that moment of like, all right, dude, that happened. You're okay. You're not missing any limbs. Your vision, you can still see. You still have a heart that beats on its own. You still have lungs that breathe on their own. You're like, you still have legs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can still get up and do stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I get to. I still get to do a lot of things. So it was like, what's your excuse? Why aren't you praying? So then, boom, it had to be a moment of realization. It's like, all right, dude, you know what? That happened. Cool. I got to move on from it. I got to grow from this. You know what I mean? So that was one point I wanted to mention. I wanted to make it quick, but that happened. The second point I wanted to mention refers back to the conversation we had with Adam on that hill. You brought it up on the last episode. How negative thoughts are from Shaitan and failures from Shaitan. And it was something that really clicked with me, I think like the very next day after that night on the hill. And it's the idea that, you know, your negative thoughts come from Shaitan because Shaitan wants to see you fail. Shaitan is the devil. The devil wants to see you fail, so he's going to instill all these negative thoughts. And then it started to occur to me, okay, when people create the excuse, I'm just hardwired this way, this is just my perspective. So part of the idea that like, you know, negative thoughts do come from the devil, right? Something that started to like just connect in my head was, you know, the idea how people are just like, that's just the way I am. And it's like something bad it's a bad characteristic that they have.
You know how much that triggers me?
Talk to me about it. Like, give me an example. Like, you know how people are like, let's say, for example, like someone's just like, I always bring up road rage because road rage is just too funny to me. But like, you know, like let's say, for example, someone gets angry. They have a short temper. They have a short fuse. They get angry quickly. We know it's a bad habit, right? And I feel like anger is one of those things that's like become way more accepted and normalized than it should, right? And let's say, for example, it is a friend, especially if it's a friend actually. Like someone to the degree that we're at, to where like if you're upset at someone, I can call you out on it and you're going to hear me out. You're not going to turn around and flip out on me. You know what I mean? Because then we'll fight and I'll just have to kick your butt again. But anyways, yeah. Anyways, so if I call you out on it and I'm like, let's say, for example, the situation at Adam's apartment, yes, right? And I told you, yo, you could have had a better reaction. Your immediate response was what? Yeah. You could have. You know what I mean? Yeah. You assessed it afterwards. You're like, fudge, okay, I messed up, you know, blah, 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 blah. Some people, they'll just be like, bro, this is just how I am. I hate that. I hate it. Right? And they'll just make the excuse that like they have absolutely zero ability to develop a better habit and implement it in their life. So that's the connection that I pretty much made, right? Shaitan is going to give you these negative thoughts, and then he's going to make you believe this is who you are. It's not just a thought. It's not just, you know, a bad habit. No, this is just how you are. And so the reason why it leads to failure is because it shuts you off from the ability to improve yourself. Yeah. Now, this is where things get dangerous, and even dangerous with, you know, the fact that just me saying this is dangerous, right? But even like to the degree of like, let's say, for example, someone goes to therapy for, you know, like genuine, you know, like traumas, more like something like depression, let's say, you know what I mean?
Shout out mental illness.
Shout out mental illness. Wait, hold on. No, I know the reference, but like, no, but like, you know, some people they go to therapy and then they're prescribed a drug, right? And then part of the therapeutic process is very similar,
like an antidepressant.
Like if you go to therapy to genuinely change your behavior, do it.
Yes.
Just do it, right? But if you go to therapy just in order to have someone tell you, oh, this is just naturally who you are, you need to change your environment, and like, that's not helping, dude. That's not helping. Take these pills that are going to mess with your brain.
Yeah.
No, thank you, bro. Cut that off ASAP. Cut that off ASAP and flipping go live in a desert for like a week. That will shift your perspective way better than any therapy. No disrespect to therapy. I'm just being a little bit right now. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, so I wanted to make that association because once again, it's like, don't put your bad habits or any of your issues and then just connect into the idea that this is just who I am. This is just how I was hardwired. No, you have the ability to change that, and you should.
Don't justify your negative habits.
What he said.
That's it. That's basically what you went out to talk about. And it's going back to what you said. It's crazy, like your experience after the hospital and my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had two different experiences, like once we got home and once we got released from the hospital. I remember like
Yeah, and this is the first time I ever told you this.
Yeah.
And because the reason why is because I was ashamed. Right?
Yeah, you should. It was very embarrassing.
No. Well, I mean, yeah, all jokes aside.
Yeah.
I think although transparency between like, homies and family and stuff like that, transparency is important, obviously, but at the same time, it's like
you should still keep some things.
You need to, like what it's between you and God needs to stay between you and God.
Facts.
You don't need to share that with anybody.
Facts.
But yeah, as you were saying, you had a completely different experience.
But I remember like my perspective once I got home was like I could have died, and God chose me to like live. There has to be a reason. Like seriously.
Yeah, no. Sorry, the way you said that God chose me to live, it almost seems like I died. Like it was me instead of him.
So funny. That's so funny. Well, I mean, you were dead inside, but
I still am.
But like my whole perspective of it was, like, thank God. I was supposed to, like, you look at the pictures and you're like, dude, these people died. It was such an easy death, but we did it. And, for us to walk away for us to literally walk away, we have everything on us. There's nothing missing. And my perspective behind that was like, there has to be purpose. Like it wasn't my time. Like I'm meant for something. And I kind of used that to like drive me to like push me to like do a whole bunch of stuff because like I was just in college. I had no money. And then from there, I was like, screw it. You know what? I love BMWs. Let me go ahead and apply. And then I applied and I got a job. And then from there, like, I was able to then, progress. But I used such a negative moment in my life to just shift it and just drive me, I mean, towards just boom, just let's keep on going, man. Like you almost died.
Yeah, shifted in your favor.
Like just go it. So like, I'm not saying I've always had this freaking talent to like, oh, just I got in an accident or a horrible experience happened in my life. I'm going to use that to drive me. It's not going to be 100% of the times, but there are times where like I had to, I didn't go through some sort of like, I guess you could say like a depression, right? Like being accountable, being the person driving. It was very like, it's scary, man. Cause like, you're that person that caused it. Like I was that guy that caused you that harm. I was that person. I couldn't blame no one else, bro. I couldn't blame the car in front of me because did he brake too soon? Cause no, I fell asleep. I couldn't blame it on the actual van. It was working perfectly fine. The only thing that was to blame was me. So like going through that huge guilt and of like all those emotions. So it's like my perspective, my whole life changed, and thank God it was for the better because I was like, you know what? Life is so freaking short. You're 19. We're both 19 at the time. Like, you're not invincible. Like, you're not bulletproof. You freaking airhead. Get your, like, just, it humbled the hell out of me. It humbled the heck out of me. So, like, I was happy that like I was able to shift that and use it towards something positive, as opposed to just being a complete degenerate. Not to like throw any shade at you. Actually, I'm being completely serious. But it's
you can throw shade. I'm way past that phase.
no, but what it is that like you're past it. You soaked.
Shut up and throw shade.
No, you soaked in it, and eventually you're like, all right, I'm done now. I gotta live life. Let's do this. It didn't hold you back. Some people soak in it and they're like, I like it here.
Mm-hmm.
And then they complain to the whole world that how they're so depressed and how they hate it, and how, when for the most part, they're the reason why they're still in that situation. Why they're still living 10 years in the past when the event happened, or a year, or whatever it is. Move on with your life. If you don't like something, it's up to you to change it. You can't be waiting. It's the whole thing of like insanity. You can't be waiting on other people to save you. Fortunately, the majority of the human beings out here ain't walking around with a cape. Don't expect to be saved. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's what I think is really interesting, and you know, even though I'm a very big a very big promoter of the idea of like being considerate of everybody's story and being considerate of things. But the fact of the matter is when somebody chooses to stay a certain way after a traumatic event or after a series of traumatic events, if someone chooses to stay that way, if you hear their story, it's probably the way they are now is probably just a reaction of them choosing to be petty. Because, like, at some point, you got to realize it's not that big of a deal. At some point, time heals everything. At some point, hey, that happened almost 10 years ago. You recovered not so long after that, right? What on earth have you been doing for the past 10 years to improve your life?
But you have to have that perspective. You have to have that mentality to be open to the change.
100%, but no, all I'm saying is like there is no excuse. There is no excuse except, funny enough, except like you just admitted fault, except you being at fault. You have to be held accountable for your own actions, right? And I think what's really, really like, what just really bothers me a lot is, but I lost it. What was I about to say? Justifying failures? Is that what I was gonna say?
Like that, BB's train of thought.
Yeah, but then went with Coco Melon, dude. The crazy thing about it is, typically it's all in your head, right? Typically it's all in your head, and no matter how many justifications you have for your failures, no matter how many excuses you come up with, at the end of the day, 1, nobody cares. 2, you still have rent to pay at the first of the month. You know what I'm saying? 3, I don't care. Like, you can literally spend your entire life blaming the world, right? But at the end of the day,
it's up to you.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day,
does the coffee have like a reverse effect on me? Like, what's going on, dude?
At the end of the day, you gotta focus.
You facts.
You gotta finish your point so I could talk.
Shut. You can talk.
Drink more coffee.
Yeah. You could try to blame the entire world for every little thing that's wrong in your life, but at the end of the day, the only improvement, the only change. You're lucky I'm the one edit. I can see your reflection. The only positive change that you're going to ever be able to complete in your life has to come from you. Nobody's going to hold your hand. And I just thought about no. I'm done with that point. I'm done with that point. But I just thought about disabilities, and I was about to make it weird. But either way, yeah, there's no justification for your failures. And half of the time, it's really not that big of a deal. I'm not saying your traumas aren't a big deal. I'm saying your traumas are not that big of a deal. Go ahead.
Nice. That was well put.
Only took me 5 minutes.
It was a really quick point, but thank God it was quick.
I didn't say it was quick.
Yeah, definitely wasn't. So perspective. The heck was that? Yeah, clap your hands, bro.
It's humid in here, bro. The amount that I sweat compared to Matic is unreasonable. It doesn't make any sense. It bothers me a lot. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. But look, since we're talking about perspective, it's very important to mention that everything happens for a reason. And when you think about it like that, of it is what it is, or it could have been worse, that calms me down. Those 2 or 3 sayings that I just said, specifically, it could have been worse. It's so freaking cliche, but I swear to God, it calms me down.
But it puts it into perspective.
Because I'm forced, it really does, but I'm forced to think about all the things that could have went wrong, but didn't. And thank God. At the end of the day, you start becoming more grateful, since we kind of like pitched it too. You start becoming grateful. You're like, yeah, that could have happened. That could have been way worse, but it didn't. And I was still I hit traffic on the way to work and I was super late, but I still was able to go to work. I busted my shin 2 weeks ago at the farmer's market, but thank God I was still able to work. Like, probably required some stitches, but thank God I didn't have to. It wasn't that big of a hit, and this is legit, like, it's a true story. But, like, you're still able to do it. So when you get to break down the situation that you're going through at the moment, it's very important to start thinking about, like, how good that you're having it. And also, too, is, like, how bad it could have been, how much worse it could have been.
I love that as a closing point. The whole idea of everything happens for a reason. I genuinely love that, because it really does help with, like, just calming you down and settling your mind, number one. And number two, you might go through, if you genuinely know how to put that into perspective, that everything happens for a reason, what's going to start happening is when you do go through certain struggles in your life, when you can really hang on to that idea that everything happens for a reason and you adopt that specific perspective, what I notice is very beautiful that's going to happen is when you start going through certain trials in life, moments of stress, unexpected situations, anything that absolutely hits you that's going to, like, that normally would just bring you down, you tell yourself, this is happening for a reason. And if you can never in your life find the wisdom as to why that happened to you, right? I'm not saying, like, everything happens for a reason and there's an answer that comes out of it. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen all the time. Sometimes it does. Sometimes people have, like, lucky scenarios where they're like, oh, I missed my flight. Oh, that plane ended up crashing. I'm alive. I'm saying it like it happens to, like, every 40 people. It doesn't happen often, but, like, that's an extreme example. That's an example of it. But even if you don't see the wisdom as to why something bad happened to you, at the end of the day, you can at least conclude that the positive was that it made you tougher. It made you stronger. It made you develop a mental barrier that's harder to break next time. So that's why I love that point that you mentioned.
You acknowledge the crap that you're going through, but you don't only focus on it. You focus on, like, oh, cool, it could have been worse, could have been worse, could have been worse. That way you start focusing on the positives. You're like, all right, bet, cool. Now that that's out of the way, I acknowledge that I'm in some sort of, like, a mood. I acknowledge that I'm going through a whole thing of bad luck, but I'm still pushing through. I know that this is going, so I know my mindset's probably a little foggy right now. I know that like my mind's a little foggy, I meant to say. I know that like I have to still continue these tasks, but now I have to be even more mindful of my actions and who I'm around, because I'm almost on edge. But when it comes down to perspective, at least you get to acknowledge that situation that you're currently at. And you're like, all right, cool. Let me adapt my moves. Let me adapt to better suit my situation that I'm currently at. If you need more time with your spouse, if you need more time with your family, basically, you know, like you need to times chill, relax, move away from the situation, even if it has nothing to do with your spouse or your situation with regarding to your family. Like, you're able to then better just boom, get back on course. So
Yeah, another idea that I thought of was, this is kind of like, you know, helping someone develop a good perspective or a more positive perspective when they're going through something. Because we're all going to go through it. But one thing that I always notice really, really helps me all the time is when I'm going through something and it's really, really like hanging deep in my soul, it's pulling me down. I recognize the fact that you're not going through it. The other homies are not going through it. So the moment I situate myself to hang out with the boys, it automatically shows me how small my issue is and how insignificant it is. Only because you guys are not going through what I'm going through. You know what I mean? I get around you guys and there's just good energy. There's this positive vibe. Nobody knows that internally I'm flipping melting on the inside, right?
Us like 4 or 5 months ago.
Exactly that, you know? Nobody knows. But like, you know how it is. You get around Cameron and you're just like, oh, my life. Cameron starts talking and you're just dying of laughter. You know what I mean? And then you walk it 2 hours later, finish the hookah, you walk away from the situation and you're just like, what am I even tripping on in life? You know what I mean?
Then you wake up the next morning, you're like, fuck.
It's not even that like the homies are like, tell us your problems, we're gonna help you shift your perspective.
Yes, King.
You know? It's not even like they're motivational. No, it's just because they have a certain energy, a certain vibe, and it shows you that there is a certain perspective out there that you need to adopt, because the perspective you're currently sitting on,
it's not gonna get you far.
And guess what? It's not gonna be there for long.
Yes.
I wanted to. I thought it would be kind of cool if, like, you know, we shared the full story of the accident. Just because, like, at this point, when I tell the story, I say it in a funny way, rather than like in like a dramatic way, rather. I say it in a funny way, and almost in a really cute way too. But based on the time that we have right now, we'll have to save that story for another time.
Maybe for when we're talking about being grateful.
Absolutely, we can bring that back up. If you want us to do a separate episode of just that story on its own, we have tons of cool stories. Not like that's a cool story, but we have tons of stories.
Recommend.
We have tons of stories that we can tell, whether it's related to, you know, different business ventures, or, you know, the farmer's market experiences, the car rental experiences, the car accident, different traveling stories, whatever the case is. We can definitely start doing that.
How I almost missed my flight on the way back from Colombia.
I was about to. That was the funniest thing. But I mean, hey, with that being said, I think it was a great talk. Definitely a great episode. This was definitely on the fly. This is the first time in like 10 episodes that we didn't like write down notes, but nonetheless, we always go off track anyways. But perspective, definitely developing good perspective, always having a positive outlook, and take into consideration other people's perspectives, because you did not go through what they went through.
Yep. Well said. And just like that, that concludes the amazing episode. This is the King of Average podcast with your host, Badik, and
your boy, BB.
Hold up. Coco Melon, take us away. Peace out, guys.
Good night.